the movie Black Widow because I wasn't expecting it to have the elements that it had, right? I mean, it was pretty revelatory. So I walk into the theater, and right away, I was a couple minutes late. They're yanking kids, being trafficked, trafficked by some guy who's the mind control programmer guy. I forget what his name is, but Draco, right? Which, again, that's odd because there's references in this movie to the Bond stuff. Okay, so there's at one point Scarlett Johansson is washing Moonraker when she's at her safe house trailer, and she's watching Hugo Drax, who the villain of this movie will be very similar to Hugo Drax because just like in Moonraker, he's on it's not a space station, but it's like a floating city or whatever. He's got a floating base. And it's lifted directly from The Americans. And we know The Americans is actually based on the Directorate S Illegals program. That's mentioned in The Americans. This is exactly like that. By the way, did you notice that it's Mila Jovovich's daughter that is playing the young Scarlett Johansson? Did you notice that? That's kind of weird. Of course, Mila Jovovich is always playing Alice, Resident Evil, mind control assassin. So some interesting themes there. But there is an obvious, clear, direct reference to the Cold War MK Ultra stuff going on. And what's weird is that we see this figure who will play her handler guy, the guy that trains the Black Widows. Yes, I'm going to spoil the movie. And we see this montage at the beginning of him with all these world leaders. There's even him with Clinton. How dare you? How dare you put me with that mind control handler? I'm a virtuous man. I would never do anything like that. Literally, I'm like, what? They're showing him with Bill Clinton? So then we see her symbol, of course, is the X, right? Because of the Black Widow's symbol on her back. Now, remember, Jamie actually has a good analysis of how the X, according to Crowley, is the mark of the beast. Now, I'm not saying that in the end times, the mark of the beast is literally going to be an X. But it is interesting that in the Crowleyan worldview, Crowley has this weird kind of played out thing. It has to do with like the axis of the world, and like that it symbolizes the totality of the world and the universe. This is always hard to illustrate what I'm saying, but let's see. So we have, right? So if you have like a globe and you draw through the middle, right, you can see how this is also a circle with an X, right? So it's the axis of the world kind of a thing, right? So according to the Crowleyan system, to boil it all down really quickly, that's why the mark of the beast is an X. So that is relevant that she's immediately signified by that, because there are these sort of quasi-Crowleyan elements going on with mind control and with Marvel, obviously. All right, so then next, what comes along in the plot, I'm not going to tell you the whole plot. You'll watch the movie, I'm sure. But so we know that she's stationed with I forgot. So in the opening sequence, they show her being trained as a Soviet illegal to adapt to American culture, which is a fascinating mind control kind of theme, right? With the way that if you watched The Americans, right, the way Philip and Elizabeth, remember, I think it's season 2 or 3, where when they meet, they meet when the government had put them together in their fake American city in Russia where they were trained to be illegals. Remember that? That was pretty crazy. Well, that's all at the beginning of this movie, right? And so we see the young Scarlet, the young Black Widow, going through the training, the mind control, so she's taught Christmas, she's taught all this stuff to do with American culture, blah, blah, blah. And then later on we see there's mention of drugs and microchips. And that's at the beginning when we see people fighting over these drugs that apparently counteract the mind control programming, which we find out is not just psychological, it's chemical. And so later on in the plot, we learn that the bad guy, Draco, whatever his name is, he's not just mind controlling people through psychological processes. In fact, Scarlett Johansson learns that the later Black Widow models were controlled via chemical alteration. So they're mind controlled via chemicals. Their very DNA and thought processes changed. And it's only counteracted by this sort of red gassy chemical that's the solution, right? As I said, she's watching Moonraker on TV, and then I just realized when I went and watched, because we're going to be doing a show on Mind Control Assassins, I watched On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and I forgot that Draco is the father of James Bond's wife, who gets killed, and that leads to James Bond being mind controlled. If you remember in the narrative of the Bond stories, Bond becomes a split personality person after On Her Majesty's Secret Service. When his wife gets killed, that's the one with George Lazenby. Is it Live and Let Die? No, not Live and Let Die. You Only Live Twice. I think one of those, the one where he goes to Japan and there's all the, the giggling Japanese girls, anime girls or whatever. You remember that one? He loses his mind at the end of that one, right? So he gets mind control. Anyway, Dreykov might have a reference to Draco, because when Bond goes to meet Draco in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, he says, wait a minute, you work with all the crime syndicates and Spectre. Now, he ends up marrying Draco's daughter, but what is the villain's name in this? I'm gonna get his name wrong. So let me make sure. By the way, we have a point to this. I know I'm rambling, but we're gonna get to the illegals program, and you're gonna see all the stuff in Mark's articles that are pretty amazing. By the way, that was weird. The Red Guardian versus Captain America dialectic there. That was weird. That was unexpected. All right, what is that bad guy's name? I'm sorry, I can't remember everything, guys. Come on. Dreykov. Okay, so it's not Draco, it's Dreykov, but that's close to Draco, right? The constellation and the idea of the dragon. The red dragon, Dreykov. Hugo Drax. And by the way, it's going to be pretty crazy when you realize what the plan of Dreykov is at the end of the movie, right? All right, so let's see. I always try to write my notes in the theater in the dark, and I can't. So then we have this secret base where they program the girls. It's called the Red Room. We don't know where it is. They can't find it. Most of the movie is Natasha, Black Widow, trying to find the Red Room. So she's reunited with her Soviet illegals family, her fake family, which was located in Ohio. There were Directorate S illegals, if I recall, in Ohio. I think that's right. We find out, oh yeah, she was a defector. She eventually defected to S.H.I.E.L.D. from this Red Room program. What's interesting from the real MK Ultra perspective is that, as we've pointed out many times, their old MK Ultra programs did morph into these transhumanist programs. Okay, so the human augmentation is out of MK Ultra. We're going to get to that in a moment. That's the actual UK Defense document paper that just came out admitting human augmentation and transhumanism directly connected to the Great Reset, to the implantable chips, following the wearables. And they even say it's part of the warfare model, right? They said we're going to have to do this because future of warfare is going to have these super soldiers. Yes, this is a super soldier document. So we're talking about literal Black Widow stuff. In Black Widow, their electromagnetic brain frequencies are mixed. They're scrambled.
This is what the mRNA stuff does.
You can't. This is unbelievable. This is what's in the movie. Anyway, so let's see. One of the characters is even said to have an alter. Oh, there's a chemical process that creates the alternate personality, and some of the people don't even know what they did in their alternate personalities. That's what it was. That's why I made that note. We find out that these are human trafficked kids, right? Because remember, she's an orphan. She's placed with her sister, played by the chick from Midsommar. They're all orphans that are put into this mind control. That probably really exists, right? Red Guardian, we learn, played by the guy who's Hop in Stranger Things. He was the original first Soviet super soldier. He's the foil to Captain America. Then when they eventually have to find their mom, played by Rachel Weisz, the fake Soviet illegals' mom, who played their mom, and we find out that she's literally doing the Jose Delgado stuff. She's researching pigs out in the middle of nowhere in Russia, mind controlling the pigs with microchips and chemicals to make the pigs do whatever she puts into her iPad. So she can actually shut off any of the motor functions of the pigs via the frequencies. So we're like legit Dr. Jose Delgado stuff. Remember the videos? You can go, I think you can still watch them on YouTube, right? Jose Delgado's controlling the bulls with the mind control implants. He can make the bull do this and that. There's videos of this. Dr. Jolyon West, he was given LSD to the elephants at the zoo. John C. Lilly, given LSD, mind controlling the dolphins. By the way, though, excuse me, who's really doing the implant stuff? It's not the Russians. It's the CIA, the U.S. military, DARPA is who's doing that. And now Bill Gates, Gil Bates, Klaus Schwab, and that crew has taken upon themselves the mantle of altering everyone in mind control. Literally what Dreykov is doing in this movie is what Gil Bates and Klaus Schwab are doing now. I'm not joking. You can't make this up. The only thing that's Hollywoodized in this is that at least Dreykov is like floating in a sky base. That's pretty cool for a villain. Right. I mean, that's like, but so Klaus Schwab, I don't think he's floating around in a sky base. He may be in an underground bunker. He may be in an underground city. So maybe he can rival that. But Dreykov is floating in a cloud hidden in his sky base. One thing that's interesting that this movie hints at is that it's really Monarch mind control is in phases to create this network of mind control Black Widows. So if you don't know, the plot is Dreykov has hundreds of widows, maybe thousands, I don't remember, maybe 2,000, I don't remember. And he strategically placed his mind-controlled sleeper cell widows all over the world such that he can at any moment trigger them to do anything that they need to do, to destroy the stock market, to cause a revolution, to topple governments, right? So Scarlett, the Natasha character, she's just the older generation of that, right? So she's not had her thought processes altered by the chemical process that Dreykov's doing by changing people's brains. I can't read that note. Something's soldier project. I don't know what that note means. I got to write better notes in the movies. I can't even read my notes. Makes U.S. stronger. Trauma-based mind. Oh, it's said to be trauma-based mind control. That's pretty crazy. I think it even says trauma-based mind control in the movie. Dreykov is much like Hugo Drax. He's floating around in a space station, more or less, an air station. It does seem like there's a loose quasi-anti-Russian element to this film. I mean, we've seen this, obviously, in recent years with Red Sparrow, obvious anti-Russian propaganda. the recent reboots of Tom Clancy, obvious anti-Russian propaganda. This was not totally anti-Russian. I mean, the family in the film stops the bad guy. It's not really the Russian government. He's sort of moved on. It's kind of like Spectre. So he's sort of moved on beyond that, and he's just using the latest instantiation of mind control as a kind of Bond villain, right? So it's not exactly Russian, and all of the heroes in this film are Russian, I guess you could say. So, but it does kind of reinforce just loosely the idea that, oh, Russia mind controls sex operative, as if that's not what's going on in the West. I mean, again, all this stuff is pioneered by Western CIA people, not primarily Russia. So, as we said, all the widows are all over the world. They can at any moment be activated, and they're sleeper cells. But this nano dust is what you need to break the mind control spell that they're under. Now, what's crazy is that sounds like a bunch of stupid, weird sci-fi. And then when we go and we read this UK defense document, oh, it's talking about all of that stuff. Interesting.